Good evening. Welcome once again, sir, Mr. Justin Bamforth, who if nobody knew us any better, would swear that I stalk him and I am like crazy fangirl in love with him. But because I think he's just amazing. He's so amazing. How are you this evening?
Good, good. I see you had a really cool intro to the show while I was waiting backstage there.
Yeah, I use Canva now because I'm growing up, right? You were probably one of our first guests ever, I think, one or two. So you were back when we were idiots, when we had no idea what we were doing. So you've actually, come along the Paranormal Brew journey, so yeah, I'm growing up and I learned how to use Canva. So I did an outro as well. So
Whoa.
That was done by me.
All right. The Paranormal Brew is growing. This is great.
It's becoming a big girl.
Well, it's always a pleasure to be on here, and I'm always happy to be on here. Hopefully your audience will feel the same. So
yes, you are by far one of my most favorite guests I've ever had. Best. I mean, I love when I would watch your lectures. I've seen a couple of your lectures. I know who you are, but for my audience that is new to Paranormal Brew and new to where I'm streaming, please just give some background to the amazing Justin Bamforth.
Yeah, so I've been
hold on, baby. Let me hold on. Let me stop you really quick. I wanted to say this. Justin had asked me before we went on live that if anybody has any stories for Justin that he would be interested in hearing, I will share the link to the show and bring you on. He wants to do kind of like an interactive thing, question and stuff, like talk to somebody who has had experiences in what he's going to explain that he does his research in and writes his books on. So basically UFOs, Men in Black. He's really looking for the Men in Black stuff. So if anybody has had any experiences with strange individuals that could possibly be Men in Black, please let me know. I will share the link and you can come on and talk to Justin, which would be really cool. I would love it. He's looking for some stories. So with that being said, Justin, go ahead and tell my wonderful audience about yourself.
Yeah, well, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Hopefully we don't put you to sleep today. But my name is Justin Bamforth. I've been exploring all of this stuff, all of these various avenues of high strangeness, so to speak, and just how they all connect and seem to relate to one another, from, like Taryn said, from the paranormal to UFOs, Men in Black, and everything in between. I wrote a book called The Spectrum, and that's been doing pretty well. But my goal with that book was just to present some case studies to get people to think about, alternate perspectives as to what this stuff could be. I try not to, dive into any answers, like definitive answers, because first off, I have no clue what this stuff is, right? We can only speculate and hypothesize on all of it, but it's a real puzzle, and but I don't think it's meant for us to truly figure out. I think it's more meant for us to experience. And as a result of that, that book, I've had the opportunity to talk with a lot of people, and I continue to interview people worldwide about their strange experiences. So I'm looking forward to your experiences. Hopefully, if you want to share them. But I will warn you about this phenomenon. It's very unpredictable, and it's very, dare I say, dangerous, as some of you may already know. So weird things can happen. They do happen, and sometimes they happen in the middle of doing interviews like this. So thankfully, we haven't had any technical difficulties in the past, but a lot of strange things have taken place. So
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, yeah. And my all-time favorite, of course, is the phone calls with Gary Sudbrink. And those phone calls, I remember, I tell everybody, when I was listening to those phone calls, um, it almost felt like I was listening to something I shouldn't be listening to. It was the weirdest feeling I got. And I wanted to stop, but I couldn't. It was almost like a pull, like this gravity pull, and it was the oddest experience I've ever had listening to them, and I think they are by far some of the best evidence of something out there. Now, a lot of people will argue, "Oh, it's a phone call, somebody could have changed their voice." There's so many things that people say. However, when you listen to it, the dialogue, how it's talking, the things it says. And there were other accounts from other people from day before, from other that had no idea what they were encountering until after Gary kind of was like, "What? I wasn't here yesterday. I didn't call you. I wasn't." So
Yeah,
the whole scenario is amazing.
yeah, yeah.
Anyways,
Yeah,
that's
it's a really Yeah, it's a really peculiar case, and it's still one that I think a lot of people are fascinated by, just because it's so downright strange, right? Like,
yeah,
and that's what I like about these certain buckets of, the paranormal, or I refer to it as high strangeness, right? Because it encompasses all of this stuff. I love these cases of high strangeness that aren't easily categorized. You can't put in a quick bucket, and the Gary Sudbrink case is one of these cases, and it's something that I covered in my book, The Spectrum. I posted up on my website, normalparanormal.org. So if anybody wants to check that out, I'm trying to keep that as updated as I can. But you can listen to the phone calls for yourself on that site. Um, Remember, it's normalparanormal.org. .com was thousands and thousands of dollars. So
I
um,
just shared the link there.
cool. Yeah. So it's an interesting case, but that's how this works, right? The phenomenon is so strange. And one of the patterns that I've kind of learned from it, pursuing it and whatnot, is that there's a trickster aspect to it. And it will never fully reveal itself in the ways that you expect.
Right.
And a lot of times in the ways that we we wish we could be prepared for. And in the case of Gary Sudbrink, he wasn't looking for these phone calls, but thank God he had one of those, old school answering machines that he just pressed record on it and taped the phone call. Um, but his family is no stranger to this. They've experienced a lot of weird stuff, and so many other people have experienced it. And it seems like the phenomenon is also like cyclical in the sense that it ebbs and flows, right? So it's like some days there'll be nothing, and then other days it'll be like tons of activity. And a lot of paranormal investigators can speak to this too, right? You go out to a haunted location, and some days it's absolutely teeming with activity, and other days absolutely nothing.
Right.
So it's strange, you really can't predict how it is going to respond. Um, and I think that's also what drives a lot of mainstream science, kind of bonkers, because you can't recreate this in a lab controlled environment, at least not yet, right? But they're looking into this, certain people, certain you know well-funded people in academia and the government are looking into this. So future looks bright, hopefully.
Yeah. So with that being said though, I mean, So I always say this. Always say, I investigate ghosts, if you will, for lack of better description.
Mhm.
Um, but that's what I do. Then there's people that hunt Bigfoot. Then there's people that research or hunt UFOs, right? So I find that what you're focusing and putting all your energy into is mainly what it is that you experience, right? So
Mhm.
I experience spirit, EVPs, audible voices, this and that. I've never seen Bigfoot. I stare at the sky, Justin. I look up, I watch meteor showers, lunar eclipses, any type of moon that's going to be in a weird color, shape, form, whatever. I'm obsessed with the night sky, obsessed with space. So I've spent probably a good amount of my living life looking up there, and to my knowledge, have never seen anything.
Mhm.
Um, I would like to, and I don't know if that's crazy to you because if somebody says to me, "Oh, I want to experience a demon," I'm like,
Mhm.
"Whoa." Anybody that wants that is a little crazy, you know?
Right.
So for me to
Yeah.
say I would like to experience something, I don't know if that's crazy or not
Mhm.
because on the paranormal side of it, things happen so fast that before
Yeah.
you realize what's going on, it's over with the situation. You know what
Right.
I mean? You don't have
Yeah.
time to be afraid or anything, at least for me anyway, but
Yeah, well, there's also this element at play that I've noticed. Again, this is all from interviewing a lot of people over the years, and what I try to look for is I look for certain commonalities that they may relate to me, and I make a little note of it. And when you have a bunch of people starting to say the same thing, then it's really fascinating. And one of these aspects is this: when the experience does take place, people often respond in ways that is out of character, and they don't really understand it. Even looking back on the event in hindsight, they're like, "Well, yeah, why did I, act this way or that way?" It's almost like now that could be two reasons, right? That could be, maybe the brain just can't process certain things, right? So we
Mhm.
kind of change the way we behave. But then on the other end, maybe it's a byproduct or a telltale sign of the phenomenon that it is having such an effect on us that it's almost, dare I say, manipulating us or changing the way we respond. Uh, it's really interesting. But a lot of people, when I interview them, I always ask them that question like, okay, is this how you normally would have responded? And then they stop and they think for a minute and they're like, no, that's really strange. Why did I respond that way? Case in point, being these Men in Black encounters, right? Sometimes people always, they like to go into this thinking, oh, if I ever see a Men in Black, like I'm going to take my camera or my phone, I'm going to snap a photo of them and I'm going to get them on camera, and this is how I'm going to do it. They set this whole like strategy out, and then when the experience actually does take place, they don't realize it's a Men in Black encounter until afterwards, or they're so disturbed by it that they kind of like lose focus of their intentions, and that's happened to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Um, so it's very interesting. So look, if you can prepare yourself to uh, to experience this phenomenon, great, more power to you. But I can pretty much guarantee that it's not going to work in the way that you think it's going to work. And a
Of
lot of paranormal investigators listening to the show, they can certainly attest to that, right?
right.
You have all your recorders, you have all your equipment, you have everything ready to rock. And what happens? The best experiences happen when you turn all that stuff off, or when you're not ready for it, when you're on like a smoke break or something. So the only thing we can do is look at this, and be ready at all times. But it will happen in the moments that you least expect it. So,
I love how you put it where you said, "Maybe we're not meant to know, we're just meant to experience."
mm,
You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like, no, and
yeah,
because let's think about it, at the end of the day, if somebody was on TV and a quote unquote ghost walked up and sat down and said, "Oh yeah, the other side is like this, and this is what happens when you die, and yeah, you got to like," and we got all the answers, then what?
yeah, yeah. And that kind of brings up another interesting question too, is are the people who are experiencing this sort of stuff, who I like to call experiencers, um, are the experiencers, is there something that they have that the phenomenon needs in order to manifest itself, or no, in order to enter our realm, so to speak? Are we, do we play a more integral part into this than we think or that we may know? Or on the flip side, maybe it has nothing to do with us at all. Maybe we're just innocent bystanders, and for whatever reason, these things come in and out of our existence, but it has nothing to do with us. Again, as humans, we like to kind of like make everything into like a black and white issue, right?
Yep.
Right versus wrong, good versus evil. And, there's, I don't know, I tend to think, well, maybe there's another side to this, right? And again, not to turn it into like a Wednesday night sermon, but I tend to look at a lot of this from the Bible perspective, because I see a lot of similarities too, or a lot of interesting concepts. And one of those concepts was found in like the Old Testament, right, where there was this guy named Joshua, right, and he's getting ready to attack Jericho, and he's on top of a hill, and he sees a man standing off to the side, and he asks the man, "Well, who are you? Are you for us or against us?" And the man responds, "Neither. I'm part of the Lord's army." So, what does that tell us? That tells us that there are forces at play that have nothing to do with human agendas. It could be that this phenomenon, whatever it is, might be neutral. It might just be, dare I say, observing us, or maybe it may not. Maybe it may just be coming in and out of our reality for whatever reason, or maybe we can somehow see it or sense it for reasons I have no clue. So, anyways, thoughts to think about.
No, but that's so true. And you know what? If you let your brain go down that rabbit hole, it just
Mhm.
you go deeper and deeper and everything's like, yeah, and you can contradict almost everything that your thought, the thought you had
Mhm.
previously. You know what I mean? You can say, okay, yeah, but what about
Yeah.
this? Um, and Sabrina says, I think our experiences are always personal, meant for you to experience it. That's why we have had time proving we have a hard time proving those experiences, you know,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
which makes sense.
Sabrina's right on.
Yeah. And then she also said, and it's weird because I was thinking this in my head on the way home tonight. Justin, I would love to have you and Andrea Perron together talking extraterrestrial. It would be a long, amazing night listening to you both. I was thinking the same thing
Yeah.
because I was going to ask you, because I started recently thinking, like in the last year or two, like
Mhm.
everything's under this big umbrella, and there could be different reasons why I see it. But and I'm just using for lack of better description. I see a
Mhm.
ghost, my friend Ron sees Bigfoot, you know, um, you know, and so forth. You see Men in Black, whatever. Like
Mhm.
maybe it's all the same thing. We just perceive it differently, right? Or
Oh yeah.
maybe, you know. So I was thinking in my head that a lot of people in the paranormal field now are starting to say that they believe that the reason we experience paranormal stuff, meaning quote unquote ghosties, is because of UFOs, aliens, or extraterrestrials. So it's almost like they are starting to, and Andrea Perron is one of them, where,
Mhm.
the house, at first it was, just the ghosts and the spirits and this and that, but then she had come out saying, like, she believes that there's, and correct me if I'm saying anything wrong, Sabrina. I know that you've talked to her about this, but that she believes that there are extraterrestrial life surrounding the area as well. That
Yeah.
could that help this paranormal phenomena to happen.
Yeah. And look, it's, there's a lot of different perspectives on this, and who's to say one person's wrong and another person's right? I try to reserve my opinions when it comes to what this stuff is, because I don't think we're asking the right questions yet. I think that we're a long way off from determining what it is. because again, we're not in that right mindset. We tend to, as human beings, we tend to think of things in a linear manner, right? From point A to point B, and things are happening here and there. But I don't think it's that simple. I think it's a very complex topic, and there's a lot of different layers to it. But
Oh,
I think we
absolutely.
need to keep asking questions and keep considering all these perspectives, because it could be that maybe it's a little bit of this, a little bit of that. It could be that maybe we're not dealing with one particular force. Maybe we're dealing with a bunch of different things, similar to like nature and animals today, right? There's a bunch of different species, right? Um, maybe there's a bunch of different types of energy. I don't know. Again, I can only
Or
speculate.
or
Mhm.
the green men with the big black eyes are sending prototypes, if you will, down to see how we interact with different types. And like sometimes the program, it's almost like a matrix type thing, right? Sometimes the
Mhm.
program might produce it. They tried making a large, let's just say they tried making a large man like Andre the Giant, to replica,
Yeah.
but they, something got wrong and it had hair all over it. And when it beams it down, um, it looks like Bigfoot, and then sometimes when they try to replicate people, maybe we are as spirit, ghost hunters, or whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
We're seeing it as a shadow figure, or we're seeing it as a, this and that. And the voices we're hearing are really these voices that are being prototyped or copied and sent down, and we are hearing them this way. See what I'm saying? Like you could go down a rabbit
Yeah.
hole with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's again, it's all speculative, right? So that's like, again, but it's good to keep asking these questions, because I don't think you or me or anybody listening today is going to truly come to a definitive conclusion with any of this stuff. But if we can present things to kind of get to encourage that thinking, right? And to look at things as not how we've been led to believe for so many decades, of research right now, that ghosts are the spirits of dead people, aliens are from outer space,
Right.
Bigfoot is some sort of cryptid. Well, maybe all of these things are interconnected. Maybe all of these things are just, maybe they're mental projections based on, I don't know, dare I say, maybe there's just throwing ideas out there, but maybe it's pulling from like a collective consciousness, these archetypes. And
Mm,
maybe the phenomenon has no definitive form, but
right.
it is just appearing as certain things so that we can visibly see it and we can
Right.
identify it as such. It
Right.
kind of gets into this whole topic of theophany, right? Which is like, it's the it's taking something that it's a visible manifestation of something to humankind, and again, this is from a spiritual perspective. But when you look at how God was personified in the Bible, right, you never saw his true form. He always appeared as something else, like burning bushes, a pillar of cloud or fire, or storm. Angels took the shape of other human beings, other things. I mean, look at even how Jesus spoke to his disciples. It was never like a truce. It was never a obvious statement. It was a parable, right? It was something else to get you to think. And I think the phenomenon acts in that same realm, right? It doesn't give us direct answers. It gives us little clues, little glimpses into its reality. And I think the more open we are to that, the more we kind of realize that, the more we can be better prepared to handle it, or at least to better process the experience. So,
Yeah. Um, I was thinking too, like doppelgangers and stuff like that. Like how do you, all that stuff is
oh
just,
yeah,
Anthony says,
yeah.
Justin, when was the last time you encountered a man in black or men in black? On a side note, you do not have to say anything, especially if you feel it will endanger you if you were to share your experience with us and this gets out to them.
Well, um, no worries, Anthony, because they're already at your door. No, I'm just kidding. Um,
I was
no,
gonna
so
say, there's the first weird thing. Tell them they're not getting on their way there.
No, it's look, it doesn't quite work that way. So, all right, I'll be honest with you guys. I've never had a true Men in Black experience. I've had a lot of strange encounters that make me think, all right, this is a little unusual, but nothing definitive that I could say, oh, yeah, that was a true MIB encounter. But that being said, I think I refer to it as like a I don't know how to describe it, kind of like a delayed mirroring effect, where it will tend to impersonate certain things, or it will. Or let me backtrack here. Because there's a lot of layers to that. What I've noticed, Anthony, is that I don't have the direct experiences. People in my inner circle do. And case in point, I went to speak in Bordentown, New Jersey. Sabrina was there. This was a long, long time ago, maybe 2019, maybe. I think it was right after I released my book. I did an event for Marty and Marcia, who some of you may know. They own a bookstore called On Angel's Wings up in New Jersey. Great bookstore. Anyways, they invited me to speak. And I spoke about the Men in Black, whole 2-hour lecture. Great, done. 2 weeks later, they were standing outside the venue, and there was another speaker speaking. Actually, it was Michael Lewis and Rosalind Lewis.
Oh, I love, 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 love.
Yeah, they were speaking, and Marty and Marcia are outside the venue having a smoke break, and they have a Men in Black experience. A single man in black, rather. And this man did things that they said, could not be done. I mean, he was walking at such a high rate of speed that they didn't even see him from one, kind of traveling. They just like saw this weird guy, looked at each other, looked back, and now he's already made his way across the street in an extremely quick amount of time. And he's down the street, then he's back, and he pops his head into the venue. Then he's gone. They got a good look at him, and they said that he looked like this stereotypical man in black. He was wearing sunglasses. It was at night, and he was kind of like, if I recall, like the typical pale complexion and all that. Looked a little strange. But was he there for Michael and Rosalind? Perhaps. I know Michael had a direct experience. He's had multiple experiences with these people. You should ask him about it sometime. But he gets very, uncomfortable talking about it because it's very disturbing. Or was this man in black for me? Because I was speaking there. I don't know.
Could it be that
There was,
you're a conduit for it?
yeah, maybe.
They know that you will tell the story. So
Yeah, maybe.
they use you for that reason, that, they don't
Yeah,
want to get too close, that old saying, you don't shit where you eat.
right. Yeah.
So maybe they're using you to tell their story.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, again, it's all speculative, right? Like we don't quite know, but it was strange. And some of you who know Marty Marcia, ask them about it. Talk to them
Yeah.
about it. They'll share the experience. Um, then there was another person who my dad he told me this story recently. His neighbor had a copy of my book on her kitchen table, and his neighbor's son was at his mom's house, which would be my dad's neighbor, and he saw a copy of the book, and he flipped through it real quick, briefly read the Men in Black section, just glanced at a few words from my understanding, or a few paragraphs, and then left the house. Later that evening, while he was on his way back home to his house, this neighbor's son, he saw 3 strange men in a field, and they were all dressed in suits, typical Man in Black experience. And he's driving by and he sees these guys, and he's like, what the heck? And he does like a double take, and they're gone. So he's like, that's strange. Then he sees them the next morning on his way to work in the same exact field, the same gentleman. And at that point, he's like, oh, I got to take a picture of this. But when he pulls over the vehicle, goes to see where they are, they vanished again. So again, was this some sort of delayed mirroring effect that was going on based on what he read.
Right.
Maybe he pulled something and inadvertently projected it from his own, subconscious. I don't know. This is really weird stuff, you know.
Yeah.
So, and those are some strange experiences. But to your audience, I just want to kind of, I want to warn you about, don't look for Men in Black in this stereotypical manner as they've been, portrayed in film and TV and popular folklore. These men and women are not always showing up in all black. They're not showing up in that stereotypical outfit. They're showing up as just strange people. And I don't mean like strange people you see at Walmart, with all due respect to Walmart, but unusual people, highly unusual people. And when you have one of these experiences, you kind of know, you realize, okay, this was very weird. This individual, their mannerisms, the way that they spoke, the way that they acted, the way that they walked. A lot of the telltale signs are kind of like a robotic movement in their walking, in their speech patterns. It sounds very mechanical, very robotic. Just a few weeks ago, a gentleman from British Columbia, I believe, he emailed me to relay his experience involving Men in Black. And he said that when they spoke to him on the street, there was a delay in their audio that was coming out of their mouth. It was like their mouths were moving, and then he would hear the speech. I've never heard that before, but I've heard these weird, jarring speech patterns emerge. So again, look for those signs. Really bizarre stuff.
Um, we're at that half hour mark. So I just want to say again, for those of you that weren't watching, and if you are on TikTok, I'm sorry, I'm not ignoring you. This is just something new I'm trying to do, because I can't go live on TikTok through StreamYard. So I don't see your comments, but if you can come over to Facebook or YouTube and comment in there. Justin is looking for if anybody has had any experiences as he is talking about some of the things that he's talking about. And I think what you want to just take, because I'm sure some people have multiple experiences or something like that, but your most
Mhm.
profound experience, I guess, with this said phenomena, if you have had, I will share the link in the comments and bring you on so that you guys can totally, totally, share your experience face to face. He wants to talk and
Yeah, and
interact with whoever is having.
I'm always looking for people to share their experiences with me. Sometimes I end up calling the experiencer, and we have a couple-hour chat on the phone where I just say, just tell me about all your experiences. So again, go to my website, normalparanormal.org. There's a contact form there. If we don't hear from you tonight, please send me a message. If you're watching this video after the fact, go to normalparanormal.org, go to the contact form, send me a message, and we'll chat. It's really interesting because, going back to Anthony's point about have I had any of these strange experiences? Well, I'll share this recent experience. A lady, she contacted me from New Zealand, and she saw one of my lectures on YouTube talk about the Men in Black. But she messaged me for something totally unrelated. It was about some paranormal events where things were being misplaced in her house, only to reappear a few minutes later, a few seconds later. There was a really, really interesting case or experience that she shared with me where she just trying to gather my notes. I take notes on everything so I don't lose any of the details. But she was here we go. She was planning to make coffee and toast, right? And she was heating up coffee in the microwave, and the microwave starts beeping that it's done. And she thinks to herself, this was her quote, "For unknown reasons, I was momentarily stressed that if I put the toast down, I wouldn't remember where it was." So she told herself the toast is beside the toaster as she put her plate down. So she went to the microwave, she opened the microwave, takes out the drink, turns around, and the toast is now on the bench on the other side of the room. And ironically, that is where she was already planning to go with her coffee and toast. Um,
No.
yeah, so a lot of these experiences happened to this woman, and she was going to share all these experiences. Really profound story. Anyways, she emails me, and I couldn't interview her right away because then she went dark, and I couldn't get a hold of her. And I'm like, okay, well, that happens a lot. People share experience and never hear back from them. She responds I think it was like a week later, and she said, "Look, I was really scared. Shortly after I emailed you, my son and I, we had this strange experience with these joggers um, in this park. And again, they took on this kind of like this strange people thing. And she said, she described these two joggers that they were shorter individuals, but they stood extremely close to one another. But the motion of their arms and legs did not match the speed that they were moving in reality. And I thought that was really interesting. And she said, plus their head didn't bob up and down like a jogger normally does, right?
Oh
You know,
wow.
you jog, you're like this. They're just like,
Yeah,
and they were
that
just
is weird.
advancing forward. It was very, very freaky to her. She got really upset and bothered by this. And then there's some other strange experiences that happened. So, anyways, we joke about it, but she was like blaming me for it because she heard this lecture. So, I don't know.
Wow. Wow, blaming you. So that's like that's tough, right? I mean,
I,
like
yeah,
and instead of saying like because I mean, she had the experience before ever talking to you.
yeah, I mean, well, look, don't get me wrong. She's so her name is Julia, and she's great.
Yeah,
She's a wonderful woman, and but she was very disturbed by this, and I can't
yeah,
blame her. You know, it wasn't. Sometimes these things happen. People aren't ready to experience it. They're not ready to expect it. You know, as much as we wish that something strange would happen to us, when it actually does take place, it can be very unsettling.
right. That's why
Especially
I'm
those
saying
of
like,
you
yeah,
yeah, I was gonna say, especially those of you who have lived in haunted houses,
right.
it's not a fun, pleasant experience. So
Well, I mean, it depends. If it's
it
Casper or
depends.
Slimer, I'm all in. You know what I mean? But
Yeah, yeah,
some other stuff
it,
going on, like
yeah.
what was it with oh my god, why am I drawing a blank? The movie that everybody says they love and I wasn't it's not on my top 5, but the one with Jack Nicholson. How am I not remembering the name? Wow. Um oh my gosh.
It's all right.
Crazy.
This is also part of the phenomenon, sudden amnesia. So
Total. I totally cannot believe I forget the name of the movie. It was filmed in Colorado at the Shanley was it
oh, The
the
Shining.
Stanley Hotel. The Shining. Oh my
Uh-huh.
god. Oh, oh my gosh. What?
Yeah, that's a great film and story, obviously, by Stephen King. So it's yeah, but look, I have tons of these reports that people have sent me over the years. I mean, we could spend all night talking about this. I could just share with you all of these case reports. I mean, a lot of them I don't get a chance to go out and interview, go out to the location because a lot of these people who contact me are all over the world. Another one from a man who he was jogging in the Scottish Highlands, and he saw this. And this guy used to be an amateur football player, or soccer as we call it, right? And he was jogging with his partner, and all of a sudden, this older man again comes out of nowhere and starts jogging, like jogging, running, accelerating at a super high speed. He's right up to this guy, and the witness looks at him and he's like, oh, this is weird. And the guy just goes by him with just like this very pleasant expression on his face.
Oh,
And okay, nothing unusual about that until he realized that the man had no ears, no physical ears.
oh wow.
And this was in the middle of the winter. And this man didn't even have like boots on or shoes. I think he was like wearing like flip flops, and he had no like hiking backpack on or anything. He was just he was not dressed for the occasion by any means, and he was just moving so fast. And this, amateur football player or semi-professional football player, I can't remember which, but he was impressed by this what looked like an older man moving this fast
Right.
with nothing to support him. And then when he looked at his feet, he realized that his feet weren't even touching the ground; they were just gliding.
Oh, wow.
And I've heard that in other experiences too, with these strange people. I don't want to
Really?
say like Men in Black because they're not always Men in
Right.
Black, but these
Yeah.
strange people encounters. So what was that? I don't know. And I asked this man. I said, his name is also Gary, no relation to Gary Sudbrink, but I asked him like, were you threatened? Did you feel like it was like an ominous presence? And he's like, no, it was just a very, he was just very pleasant, but he didn't
God.
really acknowledge us. He was just
Yeah.
kind of went
Like,
along his way. So.
like
But
that is,
what do you make out of that? Like
yeah,
what
that is really.
category box do you put that into?
I was going to ask you, do you put that in a Men in Black type of a category, or is that an unknown category?
I just put this in the strange people bucket,
Yeah.
but again, with these strange people experiences, if you even want to call them people, like they share these common mannerisms. Excuse me, there are these similarities with a lot of these reports. And I wonder if we are doing a disservice to ourselves only looking for the stereotypical Men in Black experience, when in fact there could be a lot more of these experiences out there.
Right.
Since I started putting it that way, I've gotten a lot more responses from people sharing their experiences. So,
I mean, cripe, you can go to
interesting.
Walmart and have a strange person experience.
Yeah, yeah. Those are quite explainable, right? But
Right, right.
well,
It's the unexplainable ones, right? I get it. Um,
yeah.
where do you find that most of your stories are coming from? Overseas, the United States? Where do you
Uh,
think that they're mostly coming from?
Everywhere, all over the world. I mean, I get people contacting me literally all over,
Yeah.
wherever they happen to, see a copy of my book or catch my, I posted one Men in Black lecture on YouTube, and that was it. And apparently that also, I don't know. It's just a lot of people have seen that, so they've started contacting me now. I don't know. I've done a lot of interviews. I've been on Coast to Coast a few times. I get a lot of, you know, uh, correspondence from people after doing shows like that. So it's really interesting. I don't know what to make of it. I really don't. I think, a lot of people ask me, well, do you believe that this is happening? Do you think these stories are real? And I tell them, well, look, I wasn't there to prove it and I wasn't there to disprove it. But I believe that what people are telling me, I believe that they believe it's real. And who am I to judge? Who am I to say otherwise?
I
And I think
just
that,
said this. I just said this.
yeah, and I think that's what allows people, I think, to feel comfortable sharing their story with me because they know that I'm not going to judge them or dismiss them or look for ways to explain it. Now, as I'm hearing their story, if I think that, okay, maybe this can be explained in a rather natural way, I will offer it as a suggestion, but I'm not going to impose my views and force them to believe something. Look, people believe whatever they want to believe.
It's
But
true.
when you hear a lot of these experiences from different people all over the world, and they're sharing certain commonalities and certain similarities that they don't know the other people are also sharing, then I have to look at it like, okay, maybe there is something here. Because
Right.
how would they know about this? There's some things I have not shared. And they're talking about this stuff that I
Right.
heard from somebody else,
Right.
who I heard from somebody else. So I don't know. I think something's taking place. I just don't know what it is.
Right. Well, I don't think any of us know what's going on or what's taking place. You know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah.
and that's the thing. I mean, science wants you to prove it, but how do you
Right.
prove it when you don't even know what you're dealing with to even begin to
Yeah.
try to prove it?
Yeah. In fact, like, there's that show right going on right now, the Secrets of Skinwalker Ranch, right on History. I love that show because they're being transparent with their findings, you know. And I think that's what we need to do. Like we, no matter no matter what this stuff is, no matter where it leads, we need to kind of share that data, right? And you know, you can tell that they get frustrated because they're trying to document this stuff with scientific tools and procedures and whatnot. But even that isn't
Yeah,
working, you know.
right.
So it's like, and I know, you know, it's a controversial thing, right? Like, well, that's
It's
not real science.
TV. Yeah,
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 and it's TV, and maybe there's other things. Sure, but when you hear about the same thing going on with the studies prior to that, and I'll talk to some of the guys who are involved with these studies before that, and they'll tell you the same thing. This stuff it likes to play games. It likes
yeah,
to trick you. It always seems to know what you're going to do before you do it.
right,
You know, it's what my friend Colonel John Alexander says. It's a precognitive sentient phenomenon. You know, it always is one step ahead of you. And I think when the phenomenon is one step ahead of you, it makes it very hard to track, to capture,
right,
to predict.
right. Oh, for sure. And then some of the stuff. I mean, I was going to say to you, Justin, you got to get us, and yes, I say us into Skinwalker Ranch.
Oh yeah, well, get in line. You know, I
I
don't have
know,
that
I know. It's I know
theatrical access.
it's crazy. I know that's a
It
crazy.
it is crazy, but you know what? If you want to get out there, like it's not just the ranch that's experiencing the activity; it's the whole Uinta Basin. You know, that whole area. Like if you talk with the community, they've been experiencing stuff for a very long time. They have stories that they can share. It's not just limited to the ranch, and there's that that phenomenon that is also tied to not just Skinwalker Ranch, but also I think the phenomenon in general called the hitchhiker effect,
Hmm,
where you can bring something with you know, and inadvertently. So it's what causes that. You know, that means that the phenomenon may not be tied to a location. I mean, that's a scary thought. You know, I think we like to think that we're more in control over this than I think we really are. And I think we're very naive to think that just because we're going to go into a building and cover ourselves with white light, that it's going to protect us. And it may, or maybe it's the intention. Maybe it's our mindset. Maybe it's when we shift our thinking. Maybe that's what protects us. You know,
right,
maybe there is some aspect of the phenomenon that latches onto that fear or latches onto that uncertainty or maybe plays off of that, you know, lack of confidence. I don't know. Again, we can only run experiments, right? So maybe some people who are paranormal investigators who are listening tonight, maybe the next time you do a case or you do like an investigation, try to apply some of these different experiments, try new things, look at the phenomenon from fresh eyes, not what people tell you it is or what they think it is, but just look at it more objectively. Maybe that'll allow you to kind of I don't know, maybe it might surprise you. So
yeah. I just want to say again, I just shared the link to come on the show if you have a story for Justin. Um, you know, again, he's looking for stories. Men in Black, if you know anybody, if you're watching and you know anybody that's had a really strange experience, strange person experience, or something like that, please tell them to hop on really quick. This is a judgment free zone. And I don't let anyone, you know, make fun of anybody, belittle or heckle or anything like that. So um, please come on. And share your story with Justin. And if you don't feel comfortable coming on, like he said, you can go to his page, normalparanormal.org. And there is a form on there. You can reach out to him and you guys can talk privately. But please, if you've had an experience, please reach out to Justin. I know that if I ever have an experience, you're the first person I am calling.
well,
One,
you
I'm
know,
gonna be like, what the hell was that? And what the hell do I do?
Well, here's a tip too for your audience. When an experience does take place, write it down immediately, because you're going to forget a lot of details the longer you wait to document it. Memory is fallible. You're going to lose track of some of these details. We have to acknowledge that, right? We're not going to remember these things. Case in point, when you have a dream, right? You wake up from that dream and you're like, oh, I'll remember it tomorrow. And you don't, you know, keep a book right by your bedside table so you can log your dreams. But the same thing with the phenomenon, when you have an experience, write it down immediately. Now, I will say this. There have been times, and this is where it gets into like the very strange aspects of how the phenomenon may operate. There have been experiences when I've had a strange event take place, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to write this down right away. And then it's almost like my mind is trying to convince me not to write it down. And that gets really weird. That gets freaky. It's really strange. I mean, this stuff, there are effects from the experience, I think, that I don't think we're aware of. And I think, again, there's this trickster at play. Rosemary Ellen Guiley, she used to refer to it as the jinn or the jinn. And some of you are probably familiar with the jinn. And I think the jinn take different forms, and I think we call it different things. In Western society, we call it demons. I think there's a lot of, in Europe they call it, like fairies and what have you. I think it's
Elementals,
all
yes.
elementals. Yeah,
yes.
I think it's all the same. I think it's the trickster at play, and I think there's this aspect of the phenomenon that has something to do with that. So, anyways, push that aside, write it down, log it, write down the date, time, all of the details that you can remember, even the weather. I've been doing that for several years. I now have a log of experiences, and I have a lot of experiences, but something happens, I write it down on my phone, write it down.
Wait, you yourself?
Oh yeah. I've started for a long time. When something takes place that's very unusual, no matter how much my mind tries to downplay it as, oh, that's weird, but it's nothing significant, I will write it down, because you never know when that might actually be significant later on, or someone involved with that experience, it might have some sort of significance to them. I'll give you an example here. This happened I'm pulling up my notes here. This was June of this year. And so I'll share with your audience this. I haven't shared this publicly yet.
Yes.
So here you go, the Paranormal Brew exclusive.
Yes.
So this is really weird.
I should have like this exclusive thing that pops up.
So my wife is an excellent cook, and I was helping. She was making some homemade burgers, right? Some burger patties, and I was helping her like seal those burgers in one of those food saver systems. So I was doing it on our upper floor in the kitchen, and I was taking it to the lower floor and putting it in the freezer, right? Well, when I came back upstairs after having just placed some in the freezer, my wife says that my phone was ringing. And I asked her, okay, from where did you hear it ringing? She told me the office, which is this room that I'm broadcasting from. I then told her, well, that's impossible, because my phone had been in my pocket the entire time I was downstairs. Mm-hmm. And she looked confused. She looked a little scared. But that's normal. But I asked her, okay, what ringtone did you hear? And I played, she goes, that really interesting one. And so I played her the ringtone, and she's like, yeah, that one. That's the ringtone that I have associated with only my father. That's it. So I texted my dad to see if he was thinking about calling me at about 5:45-ish. That's when this took place. I didn't hear back from him until a few days later, and he told me, yes, he had been thinking about calling me at almost precisely that time. And I asked him why, and he said that he told me his neighbor came over to his apartment, and she was busy texting on her phone the entire time, And that made my dad upset. For whatever reason, he wanted to call me, I guess maybe to kind of get back at her or whatnot. Here's where it gets even weirder. Earlier in the afternoon, his neighbor, who's now at his apartment, his neighbor had been involved in a hit and run where the assailant drove their vehicle up onto the curb as she was walking to work, hit her, knocked her unconscious for a brief period of time, and then he drove off. There were security cameras in the area that got his license plate, but she was really upset by that and decided to, walk back home. She was on her way to work. She walked back home and just needed somebody to talk to, so she went to my dad's house. So again, this brings up another aspect.
Yeah, but your phone was with you, and for her to hear it,
But I think stress plays a pivotal role in these experiences. So when you have your next experience, keep track of, were you stressed in the moments leading up to the experience? Or did you have a stressful day just before it happened? I want you to take note of your mental state, because I think your audience might realize that stress is kind of one of those key triggers. And for whatever reason, my dad was stressed, his neighbor was stressed. Dare I say my wife and I were stressed because we were trying to do too many things at once? I don't know, but maybe all of those factors allowed this thing to happen. My dad later said to me that he and his mother, my grandmother, had the ability to send each other telepathic thoughts. And he was thinking maybe I had picked up on something like that. I don't know.
Wow.
So
yeah. Dad just flung that one on you.
Yeah. There's a lot of strange stuff, but again, what do you put this into?
Yeah.
Now my dad I've never seen a UFO personally. My dad has.
Okay.
He had a very close encounter, and he saw this was in, I think, the 60s. And again, I haven't talked about this publicly, but he and his buddy, they saw a very large craft go into the woods where they were. And he said that he was filled with an extreme amount of fear. And his buddy and him, they got the hell out of there. Well, they reported that to the local newspaper. And I have that newspaper clipping. I'm going to be talking about this in future lectures and presentations. But what's really bizarre about that is what happened afterwards. My dad's friend was contacted by some random family who got his phone number. And he said, come on over to our house. We want to show you what we're really interested in this topic. So my dad and his friend, they go over to this random family's house. And I believe they had a strange people encounter with the family.
Okay.
Because my dad said that there was something very strange about that family, that their eyes were all black. It was either all black or very large. It was unusual. And the family all looked almost identical to one another. So
wow. Well, and here's the thing, okay? Here's the thing. Mm-hmm. Maybe you and everybody that's around you, your dad's the conduit. Your dad is having these experiences. And I'm sure your dad probably afterwards was like, what the heck did we go over these strange people's house for? Like something made them go over a strange person's house that they don't even know. Like, for all you know, it's walking into the Texas Chainsaw Massacre house. You know what I mean?
I know, right?
Like, comfortably thinking about that, you wouldn't do it normally.
Yeah, it was really, really interesting. And then he said that this family, they showed him and his friend all of these pictures of UFOs and even what they believe was this alien being that looked like Christ. And then he said that my dad got uncomfortable because he saw things that looked like classified documents. Oh. And at that point, he was like, I don't want to be a part of this. This is really,
it's too much.
Where did you get these? Yeah.
Ignorance is bliss.
Right. So he got a little weirded out. So he left. But I think he told me that his friend had went over to that house a few other times after that. But then suddenly his friend then denied the whole event and just said none of it ever happened. They never saw the craft. And when my dad got really frustrated because they would be at like parties and like hanging out with friends, and he would be talking about this, and the other guy was like, "Nope, never happened." Just deny the
Wow.
whole thing. But it's in the newspaper. Both of them are there talking about the experience. So,
And he did.
um,
That's so strange.
yeah.
I was gonna ask you this, 'cau I'm glad
Mhm.
my friend Mark brings it up. What is your opinion about Project Blue Book?
Mhm.
Now, I know that not I mean, it was TV, right? So I know a lot of the stuff because they interviewed the guy, and he said that not everything that they showed on there actually happened, like, the way that they say
Right.
it happened. You know what I mean? Like, some of the experiences he personally had. Um, I do know
Right.
that.
Well, I think Sharpshooter Mark is talking about the real life Project Blue Book, right?
Right.
The United States Air Force study
Yeah.
into UFOs from 1950s to late 60s, where at the end of it they concluded that there was no real threat, no credible threat, so they didn't want to investigate it anymore. Well, we know that
Well, they
that
made
was
that
not
show
necessarily
about it,
true.
remember?
They did. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That show followed J. Allen Hynek, who was one of the principal investigators for the Air Force, and he started out as a skeptic on this, but by the end of when he looked at all of these cases, he then changed his tune, and he was like, "No, there's something to this."
Mhm.
Um, but again, there were a lot in Project Blue Book. There were a significant amount of reports that were not identified. I forget exactly what that number was, but it was a significant amount where they couldn't identify it. Most of them they could identify it in natural sources, but some of them they couldn't. There's a few hundred too. Um, so Project Blue Book, yeah, it took place, but we know that the study of UFOs, and as they're referred to now as UAP, continued. It was just off the books. It was subcontracted out. It was kind of compartmentalized into different things so that people like us wouldn't find it. That's why they use
Right,
that term
kept it
UAP.
kept it Area 51.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm not privy to this
Listen,
information.
I am a fan of what the military doesn't want me to know, it's better for
Mhm.
me. I don't need to know it. I'm with your dad on that. Like, he saw shit and he was like, "Okay, you know what?
Yeah,
Maybe I shouldn't be seeing this because if I know, this might cause me issues, so I don't wanna know," you know?
yeah. It's a question I put forth at the very end of my book, The Spectrum. I try to play devil's advocate. Like, okay, what if the conspiracy to keep all this hidden is actually for our well-being? What if there is some sort of aspect that the powers, that be, maybe they are privy to that we should not know about?
Like, if we
Maybe,
know they gotta kill us.
yeah, or and maybe even more disturbing. What if our knowledge or our acceptance of that information creates a ripple effect where it opens up a door where these things come through now, and you can't shut that door again? The reason I put that forward is, again, interviewing people over the years, I've now started asking about their family history. And what I've learned is that these high strangeness experiences, it runs through a family line. But at some point in that family history, some door was opened, either accidentally or on purpose, intentionally. And I think it was at that moment that it kind of comes through and it kind of haunts families. Dare I say, a generational curse, so to speak. Again, speculation. Take it with a grain of
Well, your
salt.
dad,
Yeah,
now
maybe.
you,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, maybe.
Um,
Or maybe it goes, beyond him. Maybe it
right.
was his dad's dad or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
Anyways,
and
food
I
for
mean,
thought.
you even said Gary's family, the whole family,
Yeah,
have experience. So, maybe there is something to that where it's, but even the military now though is saying that they've acknowledged, and you can correct me if I'm wrong because I don't watch the news that much. I don't really pay
good
attention to
choice.
it, but I know. But I feel like I've heard that they have actually come out and have acknowledged that there is some sort of unidentified presence in the universe,
Yeah.
whatever
Oh, yeah.
that may be. They've come out and publicly have said that now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. I just got a message from my brother. He just texted me now. He said, "I ain't cursed. Speak for yourself." So he's tuning in live on YouTube here.
Oh,
But
thank you. Thank you.
but you're right. I mean, the government has acknowledged that these things are real. These UAP, unidentified aerial phenomena, are taking place, um, and they're being observed by credible witnesses.
Right.
Um, they are studying it. They know that there is something to this, but it is not a foreign adversary. It is not what we think it is. And I think more disturbing is we don't know what its intention is. So again, I see this question come through from Anthony here, right? Does anyone
Yeah.
just tell these people they believe are extraterrestrials, that they are extraterrestrials? Well, again, extraterrestrial, we're thinking that it's from outside our solar system, but if you look, or outside our planet rather, but if you look at the reports that the government is covering, if you actually read those reports and you read the overviews, the craft is coming from underneath our seas. It's going into and coming out of. So maybe these things are here.
Right.
Maybe it's not extraterrestrial so much as it is ultra terrestrial. Maybe it's a different dimension. Maybe it's a different reality that is existing with ours. Again, speculative ideas, right? How do you prove that? But I think the more that we kind of put forward these theories and we kind of encourage one another to think beyond what we've read about as being gospel in the paranormal or ufology or Bigfoot, we set that aside and we just look at the data.
With an open mind.
You got it. An open, I mean, it's good to be skeptical, but you want to still have some sort of an open mind that it can challenge what you think you know about this. So
I just got to say hey to Ajing. She's tuning in from Indonesia. So we're being watched in Indonesia. And I always have to give my girl a shout out. She is a faithful Paranormal Brew, supporter. So I always have to say hi.
we know it's great is I think we need to also connect with more people internationally to get their takes, their beliefs, their philosophies on this phenomenon, because we tend to look at it from a purely Western view, right? But when
Right.
you start to study a lot of the other cultures and how they, and I've been viewing this stuff, you may find out that there's a lot of similarities with what we call something, they're calling something else, but it's the same thing. So like there's some really fascinating stories from other countries that I've been told.
I'm sure.
Really fascinating things.
Mark says, Justin, have you heard about the 1965 Kecksburg, PA UFO incident? You think it was a Russian satellite or something else?
Yeah, I have heard about that. I haven't done any research, personally into the Kecksburg, Pennsylvania case, but basically it's Pennsylvania's Roswell. There was I think like an acorn shaped or like a bell shaped object that came down. Similar type of Roswell scenario cover up took place. The town of Kecksburg, I think they might have a monument of it too. So again, what it is, I don't know. I think again with a lot of these things, yeah, it probably is military aircraft, top secret aircraft. Because think about this, right? What better way to kind of preserve a covert project than to make people believe, yeah, it's UFOs. Great, let them run with that story, right?
Right. True.
I mean,
that's true.
I mean, just look at, if you want to bring up Area 51, look at some of the stealth aircraft that was actually developed out at Area 51, that the public did not know about. So again, I don't know.
Yeah, no, Area 51 is pretty, like when all those people were threatening to go to Area 51, I'm like, you guys are nuts. Like there's a reason they want us not to be there. It reminds me of the movie, if you've ever seen it, the movie, oh, here I go again.
The
Chernobyl.
Shining. Oh,
Chernobyl,
yeah.
right? They have
Mhm.
this sign. It's closed today. Yeah, normally they do tours of Chernobyl, whatever, but it's closed. And these people are like, oh, but we can still go. Let's do it. We'll sneak in. There's a back way. There's a reason they didn't want you to get in there. And now you
Yeah,
can't.
and that
No, you can't leave
right.
because you've seen too much. So,
Yeah, it's there's a again, a lot of people tend to think like, okay, if I see a UFO, right, I'm going to go right up to the object, right? I'm going to try to get as close as I can.
not me. I'm calling you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna FaceTime you.
Uh,
Justin, what is this?
yeah, I tend to here's what I do when I caution people, be cautious about this stuff. This stuff is dangerous. Um, I have some interviews that I've done with people who have been injured by these things. There was I remember interviewing a nurse from Texas who got really close to these things, these strange lights, and she ended up in the hospital shortly thereafter for like
Mhm.
a week. Um, again, is it direct, because of her exposure to the objects? Maybe, maybe not. But I just find it very strange the turn of events that took place shortly thereafter. And, her case is more involved in that. But, for sake of time, I won't get into it. But it's, um, the John Burroughs, who was out at Rendlesham back in the 80s. He got very close to this object. I believe he touched it. Um, he developed a condition later on in life that he couldn't get medical treatment for because his medical reports were classified.
Oh.
And he had to appeal to the late Senator John McCain's office just to get the medical help from the VA because he couldn't. So they had to have doctors who had security clearance work on him to basically, fix him up. But he was never allowed to know what it was that they did or what it was that
That is so
was the
crazy.
problem. Very crazy. It's a very well documented case, the Rendlesham Forest case,
Wow.
1980. So it's again the Cash Landrum case, similar time frame. These two women were with their grandson driving along, and I think it was Texas, and they saw this craft, and they saw a bunch of Chinook helicopters following it. So they thought it was military. Well, because they were in a close proximity to the craft, they developed um, basically radiation burns, and they sued the U.S. government. And they kind of dropped the case. Then it was very strange case, but it happened around the same time as the Rendlesham case. And again, there's a lot of these things taking place. Northern Brazil. There's a book that I read a while back called now I'm drawing a blank. Um, I'll get the book here for you in a minute, but it was all about these cases in northern Brazil where people saw UFOs, but the UFOs tried to capture them. And sometimes these people were getting maimed from these UFOs. They were getting injured. They were even getting killed. Um, that was called UFO Danger Zone by Bob Pratt. Remarkable case, a remarkable book. But again, there's this aspect. It's not; these are not friendly things. These are not Travis Walton case. You
Right. I
know,
was going to ask you, how do you feel about Travis Walton? I mean, I
yeah.
now I talked to him, and when you talk to him, I know exactly
Mhm.
what you mean by, and it's important that you say credible witness because you're not dumb. So I know you could probably pick out if somebody's kind of just telling a story as opposed to something happened, or they
Mhm.
believe something happened. Um, so Travis Walton, when I talked to him,
Mhm.
it didn't matter if it was true or not. I'm talking to him and I'm like, this man went through something.
Yeah.
Like, just talking to him, like, he went through something. And I mean,
Hmm.
he was supposed to be on a panel and, they had like a fake blow up alien thing up there. And he's like,
Yeah.
you need to take it down.
Yeah. I think I was at that same panel discussion.
Yeah. He
Yeah.
did not want the
Yeah.
alien thing up there, and you
Yeah.
could, and he wasn't being dramatic about it. You could tell it bothered him. Like he didn't want it.
Yep. That's the thing. And those are the little things that I look for when I'm hearing somebody talk about their experience. When they're reliving it and when they're reliving the trauma of it, that's how I know, okay, something happened here.
Yeah.
Um, Now, again, something happened to Travis Walton. There's a lot more to his case than has been revealed. There's a lot more to his case than I think he wants to get into. One of the other loggers emailed me um, to share some of his experiences. There's a lot more to that story, but yeah, it's something happened to him and those men out there.
Yeah.
And maybe in time, Travis will share more of it, but it's fascinating. And that's not the only time he's ever seen a UFO.
Right. Right. Right.
So,
And you can tell, like,
um,
and you can just tell, like, when I was talking to him, like, you could almost feel it.
yeah.
And see, and that's what the interesting thing was with the phone calls. It
Mhm.
kind of related me back because of the feeling I was getting as I was listening to those phone calls. I tell everybody listen to them, but yet they hear me talking about them. Like I'm like, yeah, I'd rather listen to the tapes of someone being exercised. I'm sitting here listening to this. I'm like, it's the most fascinating thing I've ever heard. Fascinating.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't care what anybody says. Like, I mean, and people will sit there, but there's I felt something just listening to those voice message, you know what I mean? And Gary,
Mhm.
I have befriended Gary. I think he's amazing. I think he is awesome. And I even had him on,
Yeah.
and we talked about all that stuff. And, you know, people like him, and it's sad. People don't want to tell their story because of, I mean, legit, they get heckled and berated and called crazy and this and that, which is, I had to beg him to come on. And I said, listen, you you could set like a precedent for people like yourself that don't have anybody
Mhm.
to talk to or go to, and know that it's okay to talk about this, because there's a lot of people out there that won't talk about it.
Yeah, there's certainly, and I just saw Anthony's message come through here. He's
Yeah.
he's one such guy. Well, he can't talk about it, because
Yeah.
of security clearance, and I totally understand that. And Anthony, if you want to send me a message, you can always send me a message. We can talk
It'll
offline.
remain classified.
No, no, but again, I don't want people to share what they can't share, obviously. But yeah, this stuff is disturbing, but it's not. I think there's a lot more of it out there than we think, and I know that there's a lot. What I think is, if Gary received that, excuse me, if Gary received those series of phone calls, that means someone else also received a series of phone calls, and that means someone else may have received a series of phone calls. There's a lot more of that. I've met, one. Well, I know of two people who have received bizarre phone calls of that nature, but they didn't record it. Um, this happens. Again, I just wish people would talk about it more.
Yeah.
Um,
That's why I love
but
having you on.
again, right. But again, who do they report it to?
Right.
Like
Right.
you can't go to MUFON because it's technically
Justin
not a
Bamforth.
UFO report. Yeah, you come to me. And it's funny because a lot of people reach out to Linda Moulton Howe, and who's an excellent investigator, but she's very, very busy. So a lot of people, when they respond, when they write to me, they say, "I tried writing to Linda, she wouldn't respond, so now I'm writing to you." Okay, well, I will respond. That's fine. I'm not that busy to
Hey, I
ignore
mean,
you.
it's a compliment. I mean, you're the second person that I mean, you would be the first I would go to for sure, hands down. Like
Well, I mean, don't even come to me. I mean, just as long as you get your story out, right? As long
oh
as you
no, I
share
would
it.
go to you.
Well, not you, but I mean, like somebody else, right? Like share it with somebody else. Like get your story out there. But because you'll find that a lot of people have also had strange experiences like you. You, meaning people who are watching tonight. Um, I've had a lot of strange experiences that I don't know what to classify it as. Um, I, you want me to share another one with you?
Yeah.
I have a
I
lot.
want
I
I
don't
want
know
to
how
say
much
this.
time we have though.
No, but I want to say this. I So, like, if I were to start paying attention to these I have weird experiences with people all the time. Now, I know that
Mhm.
I attract weird people. I think I'm one of those people that just like, people just start telling me their life stories, and I don't know why.
Okay.
It happens all the time, right? And I know that that's not anything extraterrestrial or anything, strange or whatever. But I
Yeah.
attract these people all the time that just I'll be standing looking for a box of Cheerios, and the woman standing next to me just looks over and she was like, just starts talking and just starts telling me like, oh, and my son, I can't get him off drugs. And it's like stuff where you're like, why are you telling a complete stranger? All of this stuff happens to me all the time. And I'm like, my boyfriend's always like, you never meet a stranger. You just don't meet a stranger. I'm
Huh.
like, it's really weird. But I mean, like, because you say, like, after, like that one woman, after, she talked to you,
Mhm.
she started to
Yeah.
have all these other experiences. Do you think people become, like, if you start to pay attention more, do you think your mind can maybe play tricks on
Like
you?
you absolutely. Like you kind of like if you get in that mindset, right, where you become like ultra paranoid, then you
Right.
start to see things and
But you can
absolutely.
you
Like
can
it
you can tell the difference between that, right? When you're talking to somebody, like, if they're just
yeah, there's certain red flags I watch out for. Certain, signs where I'm like, okay, this is probably somebody pulling my leg or somebody who may be struggling with like a mental illness or whatnot.
right,
I have a friend of mine, actually a couple of friends of mine who are psychologists, and I usually, if I have a doubt or have a question, I'll send the correspondence to them to just kind of review to see like, okay, do you think I should continue talking with this person? Or sometimes they've said, no, I would not. You don't want to get involved with this. So I'm like, okay, well, I trust your expertise. I'm not a psychologist, so I have to trust others' expertise, when it
yeah,
comes to that.
yeah,
There's
yeah,
a lot of, I get a lot of weird uh, messages. Um, and I get some nasty ones. I mean, look, it comes with the territory, but
yeah,
every once in a while you get that really good one. And I'm like, okay, let's talk, you know.
yeah,
What is frustrating though is when somebody shares a story and I reach back out to them and they just
disappear.
ghost me, they
Yeah.
just disappear. Now, I mean, I don't know.
I
I
mean,
don't
do you
know.
say that maybe they aren't being fully honest and they get kind of, like, "Oh, if we talk any further, he'll find out my story isn't true," and you know what I mean? Like, or do you
Mhm.
think there's
No,
something mind playing there?
I mean, again, all of the above, or
True.
none of the above.
Right.
Um, I can't say, right? Because I only have that one contact message that they sent me, and I'm like, holy cow, this is incredible. Like, um, and then that's it. Like, here, I'll share one with you.
I don't understand what
If
this
you
person
want.
means. Yes, I do. Justin, I would have you on for 7 hours if I could.
Okay. Well, let me be respectful of your time. How much time do we have tonight?
We have some time. We have some time. So
Okay.
it's my show, so, he
All
says,
right.
"Hey, can I please ask where do I go? And if so, do you see where I may be?"
I don't know what to make of it, but maybe you can further elaborate, Mr. Conrad. Um,
I'm sorry, I don't understand. So,
hey, that's fine. Yeah, sometimes people are typing on their phone and
Yeah, yeah,
autocorrect.
yeah, yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like, if there was like more to add to that story, but go ahead, tell us.
Yeah. Let me find.
Oh, may end up, but I still don't know what you mean. So, hey, can I please ask where do I go? And if so, do you see where I may end up? I don't, I'm not quite sure. I apologize. I don't
Oh,
understand the.
that's okay. What? Well, that's all right. That's fine. So, well, he's collecting his thoughts. I'll just share this one story here. So this was, and hello,
England.
Mike from Manchester, England. Yeah. So there you go. Hey, you have an audience of worldwide, of all
Yeah,
sorts of people, right?
yeah, yeah.
So,
Indonesia, England.
this is great. So, so this came through. Somebody emailed me, and he said, I worked on Alcatraz Island between 1999 to 2008 as a historical interpreter with the Golden Gate National Parks Conservancy. Uh, then he was telling me that every week there's a list of these printed visitors or a printed sheet of the visitors. Sorry, he made a group reservation. And he was telling me that, everyone checks the list because some schools have a bad reputation for, leaving graffiti and whatnot. So one day he's looking and at the list, and he sees a group of 17 from Air Force Office of Special Investigations, the AFOSI. And as we know, that office looks into this stuff. So, anyways, they show up, and this was about 2005, 2006. And he says, look, it's not unusual. We get police, visiting sometimes, obviously of interest. But he's been fascinated by UFOs since childhood. So he asked his manager if he could kind of like lead them on a tour. But he didn't mention why he wanted to. So um, he said that, he kept it super professional, gave the regular tour, didn't stray from his historical narrative, while trying to still be fun. But he said, here's what was strange. One, three of them had black eyes and heavy bruising on the face. Another man had an arm in a sling. And he says, two, during the tour, which lasted about 45 minutes, they all stared at me. All 17 of these men just stared at me. No smiling or laughing during jokes. No talking between themselves between stops on the tour. And this gentleman goes, I'm a good public speaker. I know how to entertain people. I've been on TV. When I asked if they had any questions, total silence. None of them had cameras or phones, that they were using. Um, after they ended it with this gentleman, they took the audio tour and then left. And he saw them at the dock again before departure. Same story, no conversation, no photos. They all left together, spent the minimum amount of time on the island for a guided tour, and that was it. But here's the kicker. He said, except for the injuries, I would have thought they were robots.
Oh, wow.
They were all dressed casually and otherwise normal, but I never before or after saw anybody behave similarly, especially a group of cops. They always want to hear about escape attempts and so on. Anyways, so that's something that he shared with me. And I
That's
think
interesting.
that
So that
fits.
was the part that like triggered you, like, okay,
Yes,
this is
you got it.
uh-huh.
Yeah. So a lot of times in these reports of these strange people, sometimes there'll be a group of people and they all look the same. They all do the same type of mannerisms and whatnot. There was a friend of mine who was another investigator, part of API, the Aerial Phenomenon Investigations team. Her name is Marcia Barnhart, and she looked into one case that she was sent where these two guys they pulled into a gas station up in California. I think it was California, and they saw this huge military convoy, and they saw all these guys get out of the military convoy, and they went into the little like convenience store, and they all stood in a line, and they all bought, I think it was a bottle of water, and they all paid for it in the exact same way. It was like $1.03, and they all had exactly $1.03, and they all paid the same way. And these two guys, they were behind this row of soldiers, right, waiting to pay for their things. But what they noticed is that all of the soldiers, they all looked identical. They had no hair on their heads. They couldn't even see pores on their skin. They were
Wow.
like on the backs of their necks or anything, and they all did the exact same thing. It was like $3, $3, $3, and it just walked out single file. It was the strangest thing. So then they followed this military convoy on their way out, and they saw the military convoy just disappear into the cliff. Like it was like, where did they go? Um,
Wow.
they were, they were followed. So it was, I forget what road it is, but it was like they were on this road, and the military convoy was on this road, and they were kind of like
Parallel, kind of,
yeah,
right?
parallel. They weren't like following them, but they were like parallel to them, and then they just saw the military convoy just disappear into the cliff. I had messaged another one of my friends who is, who has experience with this sort of stuff, and he said, again, his perspective is, he says that there are certain areas that look like cliffs. They're actually bases. They have like hidden entrances, and it looks like you're just disappearing into it. Again, I don't know, but anyways, yeah, clones, maybe.
Yeah.
That seems to come up, with the Men in Black reports. Are these people clones? There's
I
a
hope
there's a
everybody
famous
sleeps
video.
well tonight.
Yeah, there's a famous video on YouTube that your audience can look up. If you look up Men in Black caught on video camera, there's a case, the Niagara Falls incident, and I interviewed that gentleman who they came looking for. That's a real video taken by a hotel security camera.
Men in Black.
Um,
Oh, wait a minute. Was
yeah,
this the
it's
one where it
the
was like looking down and the two men are walking
Yep,
in? Yes, I
you got
remember
it.
seeing
Yeah,
that. I remember seeing it.
yeah, it's the Shane Sovar case. That phenomenal case. I mean, that actually did happen. That is real
And he
footage.
wasn't at work that day, right?
He was not at work that day. I
You know,
read
like,
about
what do
that
you think
case.
would have happened if he was there?
Yeah. Well, again, like these questions, right? Like we
Yeah.
ask ourselves after the fact, like, what if Gary had not answered the phone, when the beep of call waiting came? What if he was not on the phone with his friend when that call came through? What if he had never phoned his friend, who said he was, he had already called? Again, all these what ifs, what if Shane did show up at work that day? But the reason I bring that up is a lot of the witnesses who came face to face with those two men said that they looked like clones. They looked identical to one another.
And that's
I
crazy
don't
because
know.
you have more than just one person's account of that interaction.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. That's why I say, to people, look for these unusual encounters, these unusual people. Don't look for Men in Black as the stereotype. Just be observant.
Yeah, we're not
I don't
looking
know.
for, "Hello, Mr. Anderson," because that's what I always think. Whenever I think of Men in
Right.
Black, I feel like they look like the guy from
Yeah.
Matrix.
Yeah. And look, in some of the cases they do. Some of the
Yeah,
case reports they do. Other ones they don't. What Michael Lewis experienced, him and his brother and his friends, what they experienced did not fit that bill.
right.
And they even had a code name for them whenever they were around. Whenever these guys were around, they would refer to them as the Beastie Boys, and they would say, "Hey, look, I think it's the Beastie Boys." So it was just a random code name that they picked up because they didn't want to tip them off. To say, "Hey, we're aware of you."
Right.
Um, but I cover a lot of that in my book. I get into
Yeah,
details
can
with
you
that.
share I see your books in the background. Can you kinda you just
Yeah,
put them up?
sure. Yeah. So this is the book. It's called The Spectrum. You can get it on Amazon. You can get
Amazing
it
book.
on Yeah, you can get it on Angel's Wings in Mount Laurel, New Jersey. You can get it at Barnes and Noble. You can order it internationally. Those of you in the UK, in Europe, and in Indonesia, you can also order it. If you read it, write me.
Well,
Let me
your
know what
other
you
book
think.
too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, so this one. So, all right. So this one is a little bit different. It's a poetry book, or a collection of poetry, prose, and thoughts to get in trouble with. So I wrote this for a couple of reasons, and nobody. I'm surprised nobody has interviewed me about the poetry stuff, which is fine. I know it's not for everybody. Um,
I love poetry.
well, it was a long time project that I've been working on for a long time, and just some of the innermost thoughts that run through me when I'm not focused on little green or gray men and tall men in black, and whatnot. But a lot of people know when you get involved in this high strangeness, you kind of have to take a break from it. It's not healthy to be so consumed with it and so focused on it 24/7. You need to take a break from it. And for me, that project was kind of a break. Um, After I finished the Spectrum, and even as I was writing the Spectrum, strange things did take place. A lot of unusual things, a lot of unsettling things. I had to, you know, I want a normal life like everybody else. I love this stuff. I'm fascinated by it, but there comes a point when you get too close to it and you need to take a step back. And I recognized some of those signs. And I was like, okay, I'm going to take a break. I'm not retiring from it. I'm coming back to it. I'm always in it. Um, yes, I'm working on the follow up. Uh, but again, I write these books just to challenge people's thinking. I don't want to give people the answers. I want you to arrive at your own conclusions. I want you to think about things. That's it. If I can get you to start asking the right questions, I've done my job. So,
Absolutely. That's what makes you awesome. And I love you. And I think that you are phenomenal. Just saying.
well, thank you. I mean, look, and it's your audience is phenomenal, because they're the ones tuning into this, to hear us talk about it. And I think that's the cool part, right? People are fascinated by this. They want to talk about it. And I think, when we build that community and we create that environment for people to feel comfortable sharing their stories, awesome. This is great.
Yeah.
Um, I
I know.
think somebody,
I wish somebody would have came on and shared a story, but I mean, I totally understand why people don't do it, especially after talking to
yeah,
Gary, you know what I mean? And, and hearing some of the things that he goes through because, you know what I
yeah,
mean? He's just, and it's very sad that people are that way, that okay, people can believe that some of the shows on TV are real and swear by it, but yet here's this man telling a story or, and a credible story. He even has
yeah,
a recording of whatever happened to him. And yes, he had other stuff happen to him, but to, to bash that, but then be so accepting of the other stuff, you're kind of contradicting yourself because how do you know what it
yeah.
is that you're dealing with?
Yeah, it's fascinating, but it's also frustrating.
Uh-huh.
Um, I yeah, there's sometimes when these events take place or when somebody shares a story with me, I'm like, wow, that's incredible. But I'm like, now what? Like, it was a
Right.
once in a lifetime experience. Um,
Right.
there was one lady in Canada. She actually sent me a photo. I don't have the photo with me right now, but she was out golfing with um, with a group of her coworkers, and this was also around Niagara Falls area. And
Mm.
as they were golfing, she's taking pictures of the golf course, and she sees, I think it was a fox, on the golf course. Um, so she takes a photo of it, and because why wouldn't you? It's really
I
cool,
would.
right?
I would totally
Yeah.
take a photo of it.
Well, as she's reviewing her photos at dinner that night, she sees that there is a little girl also in the photo in the field right in front of the fox. Um, and this girl you could see the pigtails, you could see the outfit. And
Justin, you gotta get that photo. I wanna see it.
yeah, I'm still getting to the bottom of the story first, but
Okay, go ahead. Yeah, yeah.
but I interviewed her and she talked to me about her story. She's never had any other experiences besides that, but even just that photo, just taking that photo, it's very unsettling for her. And you could tell she's like, this is freaking weird.
Yeah.
Um, but the interesting thing is that the golf course, uh, I think it was like the site of one like a big battle in Canadian history there. So um, it could be that that particular golf course may have had some of this like bleed through, right, of different realities, and maybe that's what she was picking up on. But she was also disturbed by it because, what if there really was a girl out there and there's this wild animal right next to it? And it makes her second guess herself, right? Like, did I miss something? What if that was an actual child? Like, I should have warned her, like
Right.
um, very strange things. But she
Well,
didn't see it in real time.
yeah, but, and that's kinda like what happened with me when back long time ago, when
Mhm.
I was trying to take Marty's class for mediumship, and
Yeah.
I remember I reading somebody, and I was like, all these things were coming to me, and I'm saying them to her, and I was holding her hands, and I wasn't looking at her, but I was holding her hands, and I was just saying, this and this, and she was very straight, stern. She wasn't
Mhm.
giving me any cues or anything like that. When I would look at her, she wasn't. Eventually, I had to say, "Is any of this making sense?" Because she wasn't saying anything back. Um, and without all the details, it wound up being her mother that I was connecting with. However, her mother was still alive.
Mm.
Her mother was in a mental institution, and from the time
Okay.
that she was 3 years old on up, her grandparents adopted her, and, her mother was unable to take care of herself or take care of her, so her grandparents adopted her, and her mother's been in this. I mean, I even described the black top, what she was wearing, everything,
Wow.
and what she told me was her mother was a part of a black magic type cult, right? And that she tried to leave, and they said, "You can leave, but we own, don't forget, you gave us your soul," for lack of
Mm.
better description. Um, and after
Mm.
that, she became mentally inept to do. She was almost like a 3-year-old again, like she couldn't do anything.
Okay.
And that freaked me out. I said, "Whoa, that's too
Mm.
close. That is way too close for stuff that I would rather connect with somebody that has died as a
Mhm.
ghost than to dabble around and stuff like that." You know what I mean? Because for me, that is like
Yeah.
tangible. It's something that to me was just, it freaked me out. I was like, "Okay,
Hmm.
I'm not doing this again, Marty. Not doing it."
Yeah, there's a lot of freaky stuff like that, a lot of danger. But I think you're smart for kind of taking a step back. So
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was a little too much for me,
mm,
and, either Marty is a really good teacher
mm,
or, like, but like I said, like that was, so I totally understand what that woman, because then you go I went home that night like, I can't believe that,
mm,
like, it freaked me, scared me. It scared me. And I said,
mm,
Does this mean now that I'm connected with this, whatever happened to her?" And you know what I mean? Like, do they know that I tapped into this? And your mind just goes
mm.
crazy thinking about it, and you just get really freaked out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You gotta be smart about it. Know your limits, and I think you do. So
Absolutely. Well,
good stuff.
I've had you for an hour and 45 minutes. It's never a
Awesome.
short show. I told my boyfriend, I said, this is not going to be, usually I'm like, it's only going to be an hour, but I was like,
Right.
I'm not going to be able to hang up in an hour. I can't.
Oh,
It's
so, sorry. I'm so used to long form interviews. I
No,
just
no,
always keep
no.
going.
I am not that, and I don't have to go. I don't. This is my show. You know what I mean? Like, we can talk about this all night. I don't, but I don't want to keep you. I know you have a life and this and that. So, um,
Well, it's still early until I get to the club, so, I'm just kidding. No, no. I always joke about that with people. I say, "Don't listen, don't spend your time reading this stuff, watching these videos, just have a life," As my brother just messages me, "You don't have a life." Yeah.
oh, he
So,
should be
no,
commenting. Tell him to
he's
comment.
No, I'll tell you what.
Is he
My brother
older
has
than
had
you or
some.
younger?
No, he's 5 years younger, but he's had some really remarkable experiences since he moved into his house in prime Bigfoot country up in New Hampshire, the woods of New Hampshire. So he's had a lot of very interesting experiences up there, which I'll save for another time. But I just want to leave your audience, with this, like, if something extraordinary happens to you, again, write it down, record it. Even if you think it's something mundane or something unimportant, just write it down. The future you will thank you, because you never know when that might lead to something else, or that might be a particular message that somebody else needs to hear, or it could be connected to somebody else. If you have any extraordinary experiences that you want to share with me, go to normalparanormal.org, click on the contact form. Happy to listen to you. I can't respond to all of them, but I'll respond to as many as I can. And if you're interested in reading my, crazy ideas and books and all that stuff,
Poetry and all that fun stuff?
you got it. Just look me up on Amazon or Barnes and Noble or whatever, your favorite bookstore. You stop in your local bookstore. I don't know, support local bookstores, and we'll just go from there. But Taryn, keep doing what you're doing, because you're doing good things. So it's
Yeah,
always an
thank
honor to
you.
be here.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy you came on, and we do have to set up a date for next time because, like, again, I would love you should bring your brother on next time, and we talk
Yeah,
we talk Bamforth stories. The
yeah,
Bamforth brothers. The Bamforth
yeah.
brothers tell all.
Yeah, no, he doesn't really do interviews, but I will be. I have one lecture lined up in
Oh,
November.
cool, awesome.
I'll be speaking at the Mysteries of Space and Sky conference in Gambrills, Maryland. That I think is November 12th. Um,
Oh,
so yeah,
awesome.
so if you're interested in hearing some other cool speakers talk about things, I'll be doing a lecture. It's been a long time since I've done a lecture, so
Yeah, but
hopefully
you
I'll
know
have
what
some
though?
new
You're
stuff.
so good at it. You really are good at it. You have this natural you explain things in a way that people can listen and understand it, and you're a very good speaker. So, um,
Well, thanks, and just drop your Venmo to me, and I'll send you the compensation for the kind words. So no, it's
no way, man. People know when I love someone, boy, it's like they know. I told everybody, I was like, you guys got to check this dude out. He's amazing. He's awesome.
well,
It's the people that like you that need to be heard. And because a lot of people are seeing what they see on TV and thinking that things are what they are, but they just don't know. And it's the people that are veterans in this research and stuff like that that really are the ones that make a difference in my world and opening up and this and that. I don't, aside from ghost hunters, I love them. They're my friends. I love them. I think they're great. But you know, I look to people like you, who, I had Brandon Hodge on a couple weeks ago, who is a researcher for, the planchette and Ouija boards and stuff like that. And, it was very interesting, because I mean, he has a planchette that was like one of the first planchettes ever made, and, learned
wow.
about all about that. Yeah. I mean, so, these are the people that I love to have on because I feel like your education, your knowledge is key for investigators, no matter what you investigate, no
Well,
matter what
I
you
may
do.
not have. Look, I may not have the answers. I'm just sharing, the stories and the experiences that people share with me, and I'll continue to do so as long as, everybody sends me, and talks with me. I'll listen
Yeah.
to everybody. But yeah, there's just I don't know where this is going to lead. I don't know where the phenomenon will take us in 5 years, 10 years, 200 years. But I think what's happening now, we're living in very strange times, but we're living in very exciting times. And I think
Mhm.
we're making huge strides as far as removing the stigma of all of this phenomenon and getting normal people to talk about this, to talk
Right.
about their paranormal experiences. hence
Absolutely.
the name Normal Paranormal. So,
Yes, absolutely.
all right.
Again, thank you. And if anybody has anything, please visit Justin on normalparanormal.org. But you also have the other justinbamforth.com, is it?
Yeah, that's just my personal slate. I mean, I'm trying to figure out what direction I want to take that in. I during the day I work in marketing and design, so you're going to see a lot of my professional portfolio stuff there. But I'm trying to kind of blend the two worlds together, or three, or four, or five. I feel like I'm living in a multiverse. There's all these different
Maybe you
versions of
are.
me out there. But yeah, who knows? But anyways, if you're looking for just the straight weirdo stuff, the strange stuff, the dare I say crazy stuff, but yet the fascinating stuff, go to normalparanormal.org. So,
Yes, yes, absolutely. And I thank everybody for joining me. I will be on vacation next week, so I will be replaying an old show. And you know what? Maybe I just might play the show that we played the phone calls on as a follow up to this show.
oh,
So
okay,
people
sure.
can, can hear that. I mean, everybody asked, "Are you, you can share this?" I said, "Well, we already had a show about that, but I'm sure we'll bring it up because I am fascinated by that case that he had, the case story that he had."
Strange one.
But yes, but thank you everybody for joining us. And Justin's brother, thank you so much for chiming in and talking
Nah, don't thank him. Don't
talking
thank him.
through
He's fine.
Justin. That was cute and funny.
Yeah.
And
Thank you, everyone.
yes, and until next time, Justin, so much love to
All
you.
right.
So much love.
Thank you, my friend. All right. Take
Good
care.